Okay, so welcome to the Home Trails podcast hosted by me, Ultra Running Sam. Now, if you're new to the podcast, then I'll explain what we do. We're a UK-based trail and ultra running podcast that deals with trail running, ultra running around the world, focused mainly on the UK scene. So you will find us out and about at races. So we have a podcast in residence series. So in January, we were at the Spine Race. In May, we were at the Lap in the Lake District. And in September, we were up in the Lake District again, doing 13 valleys. So check out those podcasts in residence. We also have the documentary series, Home Trails. So starting with Jasmine Paris, Jet Scott, Kim Collison, Lucy Gossage. So go out and check out those feature-length interview documentary style podcast videos that they're on YouTube. So check them out. And there's audio versions as well. So dive into the content if you're new to the show. Go into the back catalogue and see those episodes. Hope you enjoy the show. So we'll move on swiftly to our next guest. Okay, so welcome to the Home Trails podcast. So tonight's guest is Sam King. So you may have heard of him, may not have heard of him. Most likely you haven't heard of him because I hadn't until recently. But basically, this guy is running 74 ultramarathons in 74 days for charity, basically for his mum, for Headway charity. So that's tonight's interview. So we'll be having a chat with him in a minute. But quickly, just sort of some housekeeping just before we dive into the podcast. Recently, I did a review for Tailwind. So Tailwind, old news. But basically, my review is that I haven't tried Tailwind since it was about 10 years ago when it first appeared in the UK. And I tried it, hated it. Swore I'd never ever have it again. And then Kate from Run Ultra said, "Will you test some?" And I was like, "Well, this will be a true test because I hate the stuff." And actually, now I really love it. So I know everyone's been using Tailwind for years, but I was early to the party, but that actually made me late to the party because I hated it years ago. So they've obviously changed the formula a bit, and it is to my taste now. So with that review, they've given me. They made me an affiliate, so that means I don't know, somehow I'll benefit from it. But basically, you guys will get 15% discount. So I'll try and put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes. But also, this could be a good chance for you to get on to the WhatsApp community if you're not already on it. So the Home Trials WhatsApp groups, there's loads of different groups on there. Some see a bit more traffic than others, but one of them is gear, and on there's some discounts on there for stuff. So we'll get the Tailwind discount code on there, so you can get on it and get some cheaper Tailwinds. I know it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but what is in trail running? The cheapest sport in the world. All you need is a pair of trainers. If you believe that, you believe anything. Okay, right. I'll pause because he's going to come on in a second. We'll be right back. Right, we are recording again. So, officially, welcome to the Home Trails podcast, Sam King. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's great to be here.
Cheers for coming on. Right. So, are you a Sam or are you a Samuel?
I'm a Sam. Definitely not a Samuel. And actually, quite a few people call me Sking. For obvious reasons. It was a name that sort of caught on as a kid, and it stuck. And I quite like it actually because I was in the corporate world. I never loved being in the corporate world, and everyone called me Sam then. And now I sort of like being called Sking because it's sort of more personal. So it stuck.
Right. Okay. I'll call you Sam. Well, I'm a Samuel. So, but most people call me Sam, and probably my mum calls me Samuel when I'm being told off. So yeah, so I get called that a lot. So how do you know Richard Lazenby, or how does Richard Lazenby know you? So he's sort of a friend of mine that I've sort of met through racing in the Peak District. How do you guys know each other? Because he basically I'd not heard of what you were doing until he told me.
Yeah, it's funny. I only met Rich this year, because I ran Ultra X Jordan, so the 220-kilometer multi-stage race through the desert in Jordan last year with Mark Pert, and Mark and I became really good friends. And then I started going up to see Mark in the peaks and staying at his place in Holmfirth. And he's really good friends with Rich Lazenby and Rick Gill. So we spent a few days out on the trails together, and just instantly hit it off. So I get on really well with Rich. He's such a great guy, very cool guy as well. And then, yeah, when I announced the challenge that I'm doing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, Rich and Mark got in touch and they said, we'd love to come down and run a few days with you. So, yeah, about a week or so, we all met up in the Norfolk Broads, and did a couple of days running around there, and it was fantastic.
Brilliant. Right, that's awesome. Yeah, he's one of those guys, isn't he, Rich, that you meet him and so you like by the end of this race. I'm trying to remember the race that we did, the way we met. I think it was the Spire Ultra. So it's like what an ultra that sort of went around Chesterfield, and I sort of caught up to him, and he was chatting with two guys, and I was kind of hung back a little bit because they were having a conversation. I was listening in, and then I sort of caught up with them, and Rich turned around. And he was like, "You're right," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just didn't want to get into your dive into your conversation sort of thing." And then they kind of split off from him, and I was like, "Oh, you're not going with your mates?" He's like, "Oh no, I've only just met them," and he was talking to them like they were like his best mates sort of thing. And then by the end of the race, that's how we were. We'd like exchanged numbers and we'd sort of kept in touch ever since. So he's one of those guys into that you meet him and somehow you end up being mates with him.
Yeah, got a very impressive race CV as well.
He has, yes, yes.
Very-
Yeah, he's a quick guy. Yeah, he's very good. Um,
Yeah.
right. So I need you to sort of explain what you're okay. What do you want to do first? You want to explain what you're doing with the challenge, or do you want to dive straight into the superhero question? Because I know you have you been a bit panicky about the superhero question.
Oh, it's funny. I'm not really a Marvel or superhero fan. So when you said I needed to answer the superhero question, I was thinking, do I need to come up with a superhero that I can relate to? I didn't really know where to start. We probably could start with that because that is almost, that'll take us through the story that feeds into the challenge now.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, right. So the superhero question. So we're all superheroes in one way or another in ultra running. So every superhero has an origin story, a backstory. So Sam, what's your superhero origin story? How did you go from normal person in the world, corporate world, to being who you are now and what you do now and this event that you're doing now, this challenge you're doing now?
Yeah. So I'll take you back before the corporate world phase of my life to, I'll probably start in my teens, where I live or I come from a sort of a very quiet part of the world. We're out on the coast in East Anglia, Frinton-on-Sea, which is where I am now for the challenge, which we'll get to. And there isn't a lot to do there in the winter. There's plenty to do in the summer. So I was very entertained with sports and being outdoors all summer long. And we're down by the beach as well. But in the winter, when the cold nights draw in and the dark nights draw in, there is less to do. And I found myself one winter buying my first games console, and developing a very, very big addiction to Call of Duty. And it just sort of happened overnight. I sort of bought the game, went online, started playing multiplayer, found that there are leaderboards where people compete against each other to be at the top in the world for either, the amount of wins that they've got, or whatever it is, various categories. And I sort of went on a 2 year Call of Duty binge, and I went to the very top in the world. I was number one in the world
Wow.
on Call of
No
Duty.
way. Wow.
So that is and has been for a long time one of the interesting facts about me, which I've sort of thought. In the corporate, when they say, "Well, we're doing an icebreaker," interesting fact, oh, I was number one in the world on Call of Duty. Um, so yeah, I spent many weeks and nights playing Call of Duty all day long. Sort of messed up my entire education, playing computer games, and at the same time put on quite a lot of weight. And I was sort of 19 stone at the end of that phase. I'm like 5'10", so like 115 kilograms, which is pretty big for someone of that size. And yeah, although I really did enjoy it at the time, looking back, it didn't do me many favors, because I got a bit depressed because I was eating badly and I was drinking and smoking whilst playing games. I was stuck inside all the time, no access to like the outdoors for a long time, and just addicted to a leaderboard, which you can't really let go of. So I didn't really sleep as much, and I'd wake up and play it and play it and play it. So I had this gaming phase that came to an end, and I got a job in London. I got my first corporate job in London, and I sort of moved from Frinton, and I realized quite quickly I need to snap out of this, and I need to focus on trying to make something of my life, because I decided against uni, messed up education. Right, let's try a job in London, because Frinton, you would work in the local co-op, which is nothing against working in a local co-op. It just wasn't the career I had in mind. So I moved to London and very quickly dropped from 19 stone to about 12 or 13. And I did that actually in the gym. I just ended up going to the gym every lunchtime with a guy that I worked with. But I sort of followed my all or nothing trajectory that I was on with Call of Duty, and the personality I realized that I had into losing weight. And it literally fell off in about 6 months because I stopped drinking. Well, I changed my drinking habits and would have spirits and things like that rather than beer. And I just started eating a bit more healthily. I went to the gym every single day. And then I lost all of the weight, and I had this newfound confidence. And it must have been around January or February time. And my brother said to me, "Would you like to run the London Marathon? I've got a space for a charity who his friend was associated with." And I said, "Yes, actually. Like, I've lost all this weight. I kind of want to do something different to the gym. I wasn't enjoying it." One of my housemates at the time was training for the Brighton Marathon, which was a week before. And I thought, "Oh, I'll just join him and do the training." He said he wanted to run it in 3 hours 30. So I decided I was going to try and run it in 3 hours 30. And I trained for about 2 months, ran it in 3 hours 29, 44, 15 seconds out or something like that. And I had the best day of my life. I didn't actually enjoy the training that much, because you're sort of learning to like running and you're doing it because you have to train for something. So I didn't immediately love it. But the second I crossed that finish line, something happened. And my whole world changed, and my perspective on capabilities and who I am and what I can do as a person changed. And in that moment, became infatuated by what my potential is with running. If I can run a 3:30 marathon in 2 months, having just
Mm.
lost 7 stone and being a
Wow.
gamer, what can I do? Really did light a fire. And then I went on to apply this personality that I've got to running. And about a month later, with the same brother, we ran the Race to the Stones, the 100K.
Yeah.
And it was disastrous, because we ran the first 50K in about 4 or 5 hours and the second in about 10. Because I was struggling so much. In fact, I got to the halfway point, because that event splits, doesn't it? You can either do 50 and 50 or 100 in one go. And at the halfway, they have this big setup. They had lots of food. I sat and had almost a 3-course meal. I had a pint. And next thing, I was going out for the last 50K. So it wasn't the perfect race in any sense of form, but I did do it. And after that, I was like, well, okay, I've run 100K, and now I want to explore this even further. And it was always distance for me. I know lots of people do their first marathon or whatever, and then they go, I'd like to go faster. It was always, I'd like to go further. And then actually, that was sort of 2018, 2019. I can't even remember why, but I didn't really do much after that for a couple of years. And then when COVID hit around 2020, 2021, I did start getting back into running. And in 2021, I think it was, I saw one of my friends from school had run Ultra X Jordan when it was a 250K 5-day race. And I remember seeing the photos and thinking about what he'd done and thinking, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my whole life. I want to do that race. Messaged him immediately and said, how did you get into ultra running? He said he started doing Ultra X events and he recommends them. And he said there and then, he's like, multi-day ultras will change your life, because you don't just do the running, you do the camaraderie, the camp life, and all of that as well. And that was very true. And I signed up for an Ultra X race in maybe 2021, one of the Hebden Bridge in North Yorkshire and the Yorkshire Dales, 50K. Came about fifth, and that was my first 50K. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. And I didn't know. It was one of those ones where you start in a group and you kind of finish and you're like, oh, by the way, you came fifth. And I was like, wow, I am quite good at this, I think.
Mhm.
And then I signed up for Ultra X Jordan in 2022 and went there thinking, this is going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. All I want to do is go there and come home with a medal, and I've done it, and then I can die happy. And what transpired that week going to Jordan was, it was completely profound, because as that week went on, I found myself growing and getting stronger. I was expecting to fall off a cliff by the end of the week and to be, crawling over the line. But what I found that week, and what I found in I've done quite a few 5-day multi-day races now and 2-day multi-day races, I always get stronger towards the end. So even that week in Jordan, I was in the sort of middle of the pack. And Ultra X aren't the most competitive, I know that, but there are a few people, and it can be competitive at the front. And on the last day, I was running with the front three. And if there was another kilometre or two, I think I would have probably overtaken them. But I just felt so strong. I felt amazing. And at that point in 2022, that was my first sort of, I wonder how many of these I could do. I really wanted to do as many of them in a row as possible. That sort of flame was lit there, which has now led to sort of this challenge that I'm doing now. So yeah, I did the Jordan. That was a big breakthrough for me. That went from sort of like running for enjoyment and doing a few ultras, well done, pat on the back, you've done well, to like, oh, I want to start racing these ultras. I'd like to do fast marathons. And then I really got into running. I got my first running coach. I started reading lots of running books. I started really training myself into, making myself a better runner. Did like a 2:40 marathon in that time.
Nice.
Won my first ultra. Started coming in the top 3 quite regularly. All the while, had something in the back of my mind about running them as many as possible. And I'd looked online, and I'd seen that, like, I'd followed lots of people doing consecutive ultra marathons. Candice Burt did 200 row, and I followed that intently. And I remember I had a corporate job in London, and I was following her every day during her challenge at a time when I hated my job. I was so stressed. And I remember watching that, where most people will watch that and think, that is crazy. That is awful. Who would in the world want to do that? All I thought every day watching her do that challenge was, I want that to be me. All I want to do every day is wake up, run 50K, go about the rest of my day, wake up, do it again. If I can make that my life will be complete. I'll have everything I need. And anyway, so Candice very much inspired that thought process, but I continued to bob along in the corporate world and in London. And then this year in January, very tragically, my mum fell ill here in this house, actually. And she was a very healthy woman, had never been ill before. And then all of a sudden, one morning, collapsed in my arms with a bleed on the brain. We were rushed to hospital. She was taken into A&E, and we were told within an hour, unfortunately, your mum won't make it. We were put in a side room to wait for her to take her last breath. And long story short, she did make it through the night, and she actually went on to survive and is now in a care home local to here, but has had 8 months in hospital. And it was a very stressful time. But yeah, about 3 or 4 months ago, decided amongst all of that there was an opportunity here for me to do this challenge that I've always wanted to do, but actually do it for my mum, to a certain extent, to celebrate her and celebrate her life. I'm really close with my mum. She is like my absolute best friend. So really powerful reason to do it. And for Headway, who are a charity that we use this year to support us through the process, they're a brain injury charity. And all of a sudden, all of this sort of came together, and I was actually doing the Comrades Marathon in South Africa, in Durban. Incredible event, and I had a few weeks off work and a bit of thinking space. And it was there on that holiday when I thought, I'm going to go back to the UK. I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to run 74 ultra marathons in 74 days, one for every year of my mum's life before she fell ill earlier this year, and to try and raise £74,000 for Headway UK. And I did. I went in, I literally handed in my notice, and then I started training. And yeah, 41 days ago today, started day 1. And yeah, today finished day 41. So past halfway now, and actually the men's world record for consecutive ultramarathons is 60. So if I was to run the 74, taking it day by day, if I was to run the 74, that would be a world record. Heavily caveated by the fact that Candice Burt has the female record and is 200, and I do not want to take that away from her, and I'll make it very when I if I get the menswear record that Candice has done more, but it would be a male world record. And coming from where I've come from and the sort of journey that I've been on,
Mm,
I would be very proud to
yeah.
have a world record to my name, and even prouder if by the end of this can raise the money for Headway and finish the challenge. So in a nutshell, we're probably nearly finished, aren't we? Sorry about that. That is the journey to today.
That's amazing. Yeah. There's a lot to go out there, isn't there? Yeah, questions just like sort of popping into my head all the way through. Um, like just thinking like logistically, how does that work as far as like work and everything? What have had you sort of prepared to be able to survive to not work for this period of time? Had you sort of had to put a lot of planning into doing that and stuff?
So I've had personal savings for a little while. I also used to own a flat in London with my ex-girlfriend, and when we sold it, that also went into my sort of savings pot. So throughout my life, or no, not throughout my life at all, but throughout the last 4 or 5 years, I've been a bit more conscious of finances and savings. So I had some savings, but definitely not a huge amount, but enough to do the challenge. And I was more than prepared to give them up for it. So yeah, I've moved home, and I'm getting supported by a couple of brands with products and things like that. But it is a very, very low budget challenge.
Mm,
There's team around me. I do have lots of people who I'm in touch with, like a running coach, Chris Taylor, a physio, Harry Rogers, a nutritionist, Abby Woodliff Thomas. So all these people are sort of really close friends of mine and supporting from afar, but I'm sort of the only one here doing the challenge every day. And it is very low budget. I'm not running across a country or anything like that. I simply couldn't afford it. But at the same time, that isn't really what the challenge is about. I'm 5 minutes from my mum here, and my days are getting up, eating enough to fuel the run in the morning, and then doing the run, spending an hour or two in the afternoon when I get back, eating, showering, admin, putting some photos or videos up on Instagram to tell the story, and then go and see my mum. So I don't need a huge amount of money for it. And the money that I am using is just coming, yeah, from my own personal savings with some top up from GiveStar, who are the one of the fundraising platforms, who run a Adventure for Good grant once a year, or in fact, I think this was the first one, where you apply. You say, I want to do this challenge. I'm looking to get a small amount of money to support it. Mine was I just needed a bit of extra money to go towards running costs and to maybe bring some people down to help with videos and stuff like that. And I was successful, which was amazing. So they supported me, but it's all small figures, but really amazing in the circumstances to get any support with it, to be honest. But yeah, fortunately, it was due to sort of having some savings myself, and yeah, it's no one else, no family members or anything, are giving me any money towards
mm.
it. Yeah, and I'm quite happy for it to be like that.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you're sort of focused on it. It was, yeah, because it's hard to try and I suppose it's hard to try and convince your friends and family that this is a good idea, isn't it? Like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to run every day. To most
Yeah,
people, I mean, I'm an ultra runner and I understand exactly where you're coming from, but
yeah.
most like normal people would be like, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, and actually, I sort of fell into a career in London. I joined like as an administrator in a company, and a project administrator. And fortunately, just met the right people at the right times who helped me grow and gave me training and developed me into sort of an actual working professional. And I've ended up doing really quite well in my corporate career. And the job that I left for this was probably the best job I've had and the one I liked the most.
Mhm.
So it actually was a really tough call, and I did have, yeah, my family, in the absence of my mum in the last sort of 6 months or 8 months, being able to challenge that decision. Aunties and uncles and brothers and sisters, maybe not brothers and sisters so much. They were very supportive from the start, but the more level-headed older auntie and uncle did sort of prod. You sure this is a good
Mm,
idea? But like some things are just so clear in your head
mm,
and meant to be,
yeah.
even if of my family had said this is a bad idea, don't do it, I wouldn't have actually listened to them. It was too set in stone in my head as something that I wanted to do, and the way it all came together and the way I could vision it happening in my mind was perfect. In the circumstances of what's been a pretty dreadful year, this is like light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, but I did have to overcome a little bit of pushback from the family, but they're on board now.
Amazing. Um, like the other sort of logistic thing that I was wondering about is like your route. Are you moving around? Are you staying in one place and going out? Are you alternating routes? Are you literally going loopy, like doing the same thing over and over? How is it sort of structured?
Yeah, that is a good question. So as I said, I wanted to be based in Frinton to be close to my mum. The only issue with that, and Frinton's quite a flat, and obviously if I'm running 50k a day, I love the hills, I love the trails,
Mm,
but it's ideal in terms of the climate and the fact that it's not too hilly. So it was a good location in that sense, and I'm familiar with it all. I know all the routes around here, and I have created sort of 3, 4, 5 different loops that I do. It is though, unfortunately, a small town, and it's at the very end of the road. So it's limited in terms of options. 2 roads go into it, which are 60-mile-an-hour roads with no footpaths. So I'm sort of confined to Frinton and the
mm,
seafront. And there is actually sort of I don't know, maybe 15 to 20-mile seafront that goes all the way up to the town that's come along from Frinton. And what I've found myself doing is basically running up and down that seafront every day,
mm,
3 10 or 11 mile loops, which will bring me back to the house each time, where I'll have some snacks and water to replenish and go back out to carry as little as possible. And I have found that although I've created all of these different 10 or 11 mile loops so I can do 3 of them a day, I'm sort of doing the same one all the time. There's something about running on the seafront where I can kind of lose myself a bit and
mm,
disconnect. I listen to a podcast, I won't think about where I am, and I would have run
mm,
5 kilometers. Whereas as soon as I dip into town, it's also where I grew up, where I'd only ever drive around, and walking anywhere would be like, whoa. So now in my head, there's a psychology where I'm like, if I go into town and run around the back there, that's the next town, and it feels like I'm running a long way. So I've trialed and errored, and what I've ended up doing is sticking to the seafront. So I'm doing a ridiculous amount of running up and down the same path, which is not me at all, but it just seems to be working at the moment. So that's when I'm in Frinton. I have been dipping into London, where I have lots of friends and where I lived for 8 or 10 years, and been doing some runs there. So I went there last week and I spent my birthday up there, and lots of people came down and run with me. Really nice change of scenery, and lots of people
mm,
come down and support me, which has been amazing. And that is really nice. Once it's over, I do quite like coming back to Frinton because it just uses a lot of energy, all the socializing.
mm,
So that's a nice balance. Yeah, and when Mark and Rich came down, they were coming a long way. So I said, let's go to the Norfolk Broads. It's a national park I haven't been to. It's flat. And we spent 2 days there running around the Broads. So I have been moving around, and maybe I will a bit more again. But for now, yeah, next 2 or 3 weeks will be very much in Frinton, and it's just easier here. I've got my base, all my food. Mum's just down the road. My brother's here and sort of cooking for me and helping with my washing, and that goes a really long way.
mm.
And I've got sort of limited time in the day to do it myself.
Yeah, can imagine. I suppose keeping that routine of keeping it simple is probably to your benefit, isn't it? Because if you were to sort of almost have like you can almost have too much like stimulation, can't you, on a run? Like you could have if you're going out and you're going on a certain route that is absolutely like sort of bombarding you with things to think about, then I suppose do you feel like you need to keep it simple just so that you can keep repeating it every day and it's not something that is going to sort of stress you out to think, oh, I've got this to face today. Oh, I lost you then. Where did we get to?
You said you need to keep it simple. Yeah, you were
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah, sorry.
it's all right. It might be. It's just signal, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like you need to keep it simple, just sort of so that you're not overwhelmed with having to? It's one less thing to think about, I suppose, isn't it? If you keep the similar route every day, you're not going to get yourself like stressed out with too much input, basically.
Exactly. And that is exactly how it's ended up being. And it's so against how I usually run. I would always do different routes as often as possible, and go to new places and discover somewhere new. But it has just ended up working, doing the same thing over and over again. And obviously, people come and run with me, and then I speak to them, and that also is a massive distraction.
Mm,
I actually, one of the best decisions I made for this challenge is breaking it up into loops, because setting out to do a 50K loop is a lot different to running three 10K,
mm,
10 mile, 17K loops. And you're always only ever an hour and a half to 2 hours away from your checkpoint and to replenish. And if I need to sit down or foam roll, I can do that for a few minutes. I will get out as quickly as possible, but there's definitely something in the three loops which just keeps every day manageable, and I don't get lost with how far ahead I've got. I very rarely look at my watch on 8K and go, oh, I've still got 42K to go. And if I was on a single loop, I would think like that. It's always, well, I've got 10K just under of this loop, and then it's a reset. So that has been a really good part of the challenge that I will probably continue, and who knows, maybe do a lot more loop type racing in the future. Maybe not. Maybe not.
depends. Yeah, depends how crazy it sends you.
Exactly.
What what about sort of like tracking it? Are you uploading everything to Strava? Are you just keeping it on Garmin? How are you? Is anybody sort of getting in touch and wanting to know how you're tracking it and stuff?
Well, yeah, Guinness need me to do certain things for the world record, and actually quite
Mm,
a lot of admin behind that. I've got Coros at the moment, so I'm using Coros watches to track
mm,
it. So I'm wearing two every day, because if one fails, there's a backup.
mm.
And the last thing I want to do is one fail and then I have to run it
Yeah,
again. That
yeah,
wouldn't.
good point. Mm,
So two watches a day, one primary, which has been working so far, which is good. I'll save the KML file from that every day, and I put it into a folder. So day one, KML file would have gone in at the start of the run. I take a photo of myself and I film myself saying it is 8:30 on the 27th of September 2025. My name's Sam King. I'm just starting day one of running 50K every
mm,
single day. So I'll do that video at the start and the photo, and then at the halfway point, I'll do it again. The exact time, date, name, what I'm doing, and then at the finish, I'll do it again. So you basically have seven documents or attachments each day that become your evidence for the day. And then you do that 74 times, or I'll do that 74 times, and then I'll bulk upload that to Guinness with a witness statement. The witness statement will probably be my brother, because he cycles me most days, and has been around the most. They just ask for one person to validate or verify that yes, they've witnessed you do what you've done. So he will probably sign the witness statement at the end. He's the most appropriate, and then that's it. I think if you run across a country, they ask Guinness can ask you to wear a tracker so that
mm,
people can follow it live to see where you are. And I think that's why Will Goodge got a bit of stick, because he didn't accept the tracker, and that
mm.
made it complicated. But yeah, so they didn't ask me in the there wasn't stipulated that I needed to do that, so I don't need to do that, and it's just what I explained to you. But yeah, quite a lot involved.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose you wouldn't need a tracker because it's not like a continuous thing, is it? It's you starting and stopping every day, so they can see that, can't they? Yeah, a physical start and a physical stop.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly.
that's interesting. What sort of support are you getting? You know, you talked about like friends coming to run with you. Are people coming every day, or is it just like once a week? People are coming to join your hands at work.
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I think if I was in, I made this an open invite. Project 74, open invite, come and run with me. It's company for me over the 5 hours.
Mm,
I'll talk about running all day. But it's also good exposure. People come and then they run, they post that they've been with me. And then actually a lot of people that run with me end up donating as well. So that system is great. There's a lot of goodness in it. If I was in London though, I think I would be finding it too much.
mm,
The beauty of being in Frinton is it's in the middle of nowhere, and not a huge amount of people run with me. A nice amount of people run with me, but I do have that time to myself. I'm a solo runner. If I train, if I run, I'm always on my own.
mm,
95% of my running I do is on my own, and I'm more than happy with that. But yeah, for this challenge, I've had a lot more. I'd say it's probably 50-50 that people have run with me and that I've been on my own, with the bulk of being on my own when I'm in Frinton and a lot of people running with me in London. But it's a really nice balance because I'm here. I'm not getting people run with me all day, every day. But when I go to London, it's almost guaranteed. So that's why I go up there and it's great fun, but equally love the days where I don't have anyone and I can listen to some music or listen to nothing or a podcast. And actually, then I get to take it all in. When you're chatting to people, there's enough to think about anyway on a daily basis in terms of how much I'm eating. There isn't as much thinking space in running as people think. But that is when I get my thinking space and I get to sort of take in what I'm doing, and it's a nice thing to reflect on. I've got this far, got all these donations for charity. My mum's in a really good place at the moment in terms of her progress. And it's nice to have time to really digest that and enjoy the run, especially if it's a nice day. So yeah, a nice balance, I say, with people joining.
Yeah, do you feel like is it getting easier every day, or is it, you said you sort of when you've done the multi-day stuff before that you feel like you're getting stronger. So is this I know I've heard other people sort of say this on the really like big challenges, that every day they seem to feel like you feel like you're getting a niggle and then it goes and it disappears and then you sort of get stronger from it.
Yes, I'd say yes, definitely, now that I'm on day 41. But in my head, I've done lots of 5 days, and day 4 and 5, I grow into it and boom, it clicks, and I'm like, and then I'm away. So in my head, I was thinking the first 5 days will be a bit
Mm.
tough, and then we'll grow into it. But actually, I found that my body was very much rejecting what I was doing for a good 2 or 3 weeks. Uh,
Oh.
I've only ever had one running injury. I had a hairline fracture in my medial tibial plateau, which is basically a small fracture in my knee on the left side. And I put a cast on it, and it went away, and it was in 2023. I've never had an issue with it since. It's my only running injury, apart from like one or two sprained ankles here and there on the trails. And the first week or two, I just had swelling everywhere. I had tendons popping up, and my feet kept giving way. I was running once, and my right foot just gave way, and I had a big swollen. It was on the top of my foot, and it was really swollen. My feet became huge, and I've never had these injuries before, and I genuinely thought I'd broken my metatarsal that day that happened,
Mhm.
but it gave way, and that's never a good sign. But so yeah, first couple of weeks injuries, and then because I had that issue on the right side, and then I was overcompensating on my left. I had loads of issues with my left.
Mm.
My sleep was really poor. My HRV was sort of plummeting. It was really low, and yeah, I just couldn't get into a rhythm. And that was a bit unexpected. It wasn't so bad that I had to stop. Obviously, I kept going, but I had some really slow days. Like my target pace per day is about 6 minute Ks, 5 hours, 50K done. And I had a couple of 7.5 hour days and 6.5 hour days, which is a lot longer than I'd planned for. And on the flat, that's a long time, going quite slowly and not being able to move. But the injuries just sort of went away slowly, and the sleep started getting better. And then I had a really bad illness one day where I woke up and just had no energy, couldn't eat anything. Went out, ran 30K, came back, laid down on the sofa, tried to take a painkiller with some milk, and ended up being sick, projectile vomiting multiple times. And I had an awful couple of days with that illness and managed to somehow get through those days. And ever since then, that was day 24, everything has sort of fallen into place, touch wood, and my body feels fully adapted now. I had so much tightness at the start. My back almost had to be careful when I sat down, felt like it was going to go. I'd wake up in the morning and all the obvious stuff, I was tight. And now, like, everything's sort of feeling okay. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not tight at all. I genuinely, and I wouldn't just say this because it's ridiculous, but in the afternoons now, like I sort of get to 5 or 6, and I could go for a run. Like I actually could go for a run. Um, Obviously, I won't, but in my head, I just feel if my energy levels are good and my body's adapted, and it's almost now, yeah, after 41, I'd say after 25 or 30. Since then, it's really been adjusted and felt quite solid. That's not to say that niggles creep in here and there, and you become very aware of your body and
Mm.
things necessarily right. So even today, I wore a knee brace on my left side because yesterday I felt a bit of knee pain, and when going to sleep last night, I had sort of felt a few sharp little pains, shooting pains in my knee. So precautionary, I just wore a knee brace. But yeah, so a few little niggles here and there, but other than that, really sleeping well now. HRV's gone right back up to normal levels, getting 8 hours a night at least of good solid sleep, eating well, energy levels are good. So long may that continue.
It's it's like your body was almost like fighting it, wasn't it, to begin with, and like giving you reasons to stop and all the normal signs of, yeah, okay, I need to stop now. And then your body's just gone, oh, okay, we're not stopping this, so we may as well just adapt to it and just give it our best.
Yep, exactly. And thank goodness it had. And I think, like you were alluding to, I spoke to a lot of people who had done multi-day stuff and challenges that like this one, and they did all say you will adapt eventually. But a lot of them said after the first 2 weeks, and it definitely took a little bit longer than that for me. And I've done a lot of multi-day stuff in my training for this. I was doing really big distances, and I was absolutely fine. So that did throw me off a little bit. But what can you expect, when you're running like this? I'm not surprised that my body reacted like that. I was just a bit more hopeful it'd be a little bit easier. But it was actually the sort of making of me. I'm so glad now that I've dealt with some injuries and I've been through the process of like needing an emergency physio and who I could call upon and who's able to locally, because people did really help, and just getting through an illness and dealing with that. Really bad weather at times along the
Mm.
seafront here, and I've
Imagine,
dealt with it all now, and I'm really pleased to have dealt with it, got through the other side, and to be where I am now. Because I'm sort of like, well, okay, if this happens again, you know what you need to do, and you can get through it.
amazing. So, like, practically, what are you on a daily basis then? Have you got like, because you seem to be a man who likes routine.
Yep.
Are you eating like the same thing every day? Are you finding that you wanting to eat the same thing every day? And as far as like recovery, are you doing the same thing every day because you know it works?
Yeah, I love routine. That's why this challenge appealed to me. I just loved the idea of just like doing the same thing every day. I
Mm.
don't know why. I love running and being outside and then just sort of repeating that cycle. It always appealed. And yeah, every day is Groundhog Day. It really is. I wake up at the same time. I come downstairs. I make a shake. Like, it's really difficult to get hungry when you're consuming as many calories as me. And I'm getting a lot of calories in through shakes and smoothies and stuff like that. And I always wake up, come straight downstairs and make a smoothie full of, banana, oats, peanut butter, dates, just loaded.
Mm.
Um, and I'll make that smoothie, I'll make a coffee, and then I'll put electrolytes in my water, and I'll sit upstairs with my mum's best friend who is hosting me. She's sort of my second mum, but I don't actually have a family home down here anymore. And she said when I was going to do the challenge, you're welcome to live here, which was amazing. And we have our sort of slice of normality in the day then, where I don't think about running for an hour. I'll sit next to her, we'll have a coffee, and almost force talk about something else. Like, oh, what are you doing today? Tell me something normal, like not think about running or how many shoes I've been through. Um, I'll talk about all that all day, but I'm just trying to find ways to bring normality into the to routine. So once I've got all of my drinks, we'll go to this upstairs every morning, routine. My brother will join as well. We'll sit and have a coffee and talk about normal things. And then I'll do a bit of foam rolling and do a bit of stretching, take my videos for Guinness, take some videos for Instagram. And then so that will start about 6:30, and then I'll leave the house at 8:30. And then 5 hours of running, 3 loops. Yeah, I've got Vela Forte, like sports nutrition, and big fan of all their stuff. And that's pretty much what I have on the go all day. I'll take sort of 2 packs of their energy chews and a bar with me on each loop, and some water with electrolytes. And every time I get back, I'll just pick up the same stuff again and take it out. My brother will quite often leave some baked goods, brownies, cake in there, and get flapjack, and that's a nice treat when I walk in, and I'll have something that he's made. And then back out, and then repeat, back out, repeat. And then when I get back, straight in the shower or in a hot bath. And bit of admin, eating, sort out all my videos and data and stuff that I've done for the day for Guinness. Takes about an hour. And then I'll sit in bed with my feet up for an hour, and I'll get my photos together and write my Instagram caption or put my video together so that I can get that out to the world, because the storytelling is equals fun.
Mm.
And actually, it's been really forceful putting all the content out and doing that and telling the story, because you get the support and you get the fundraising. So it is just time consuming and a lot of effort, but as a means to an end, definitely. And then I will probably get to about 4:35ish and be done. And then I'll go and see my mum most days and go and sit with her in the care home and chat. And she likes to look at all the photos and the videos from the day, and she loves it actually. And we'll watch something there, or I'll help her with her dinner or something, and then I'll get back here and don't know. That bit's always open. I might watch some TV with my brother or a film if I like sport, so I'll watch sport. I do find myself a lot on my phone a lot around that time of night because I get messages from people, and I feel like
Mm.
I'll feel like, because I'm not used to it, want to tell everyone thank you and get back to as many people as possible. So I do dedicate as much time as possible to that and to thank people for donations and stuff. But before I know it, the day's over. I'm in bed, and before I know it, I'm waking.
Groundhog Day.
It'll repeat.
Amazing. So you sort of mentioned about how many shoes you've gone through. Well, you know, you don't have to tell me the numbers or anything like that. But what, as far as like brands are concerned, obviously, what you're doing will be appealing to brands. Like, so how has the sort of social media side of things like helped with fundraising, and have brands sort of got on board and provided you with, you know, free stuff in exchange for a bit of exposure, that kind of thing?
um, not yet. Not yet. I was hoping to have some. I've won years ago when I was getting into running. I saw that Hoka offered a 30-day trial, so I bought 5 pairs, and I ended up clicking with the Cliftons. And because I never had any running injuries, and I thought, well, don't change your winning formula, I've ended up wearing Hoka Cliftons for road stuff for a long, long time. So that is what I'm wearing for the challenge, and I've got some Brooks Glycerin Max as well as my sort of rotation shoe, but it's very much 80% Hoka, 20% of the Brooks. And I've worn them before the challenge. They're just Hoka are my main ones. So I'm rotating between the two of those. I'll do 700 k every 2 weeks on this challenge, which is enough to wear out a pair of shoes without risking any injuries, as I'm sure you'll know. And so yeah, one pair every 2 weeks. Which is one of the biggest expenses at the moment because I'm not getting any support or no one's providing me with shoes yet. That said, I have got a contact at Hoka who I have emailed a couple of times and who actually got back to me late last week to say, yes, we've picked up your story. We are going to support you with this challenge. So I am hoping there's a breakthrough there and that they will give me some shoes to support me to the end of it. And who knows in future ventures beyond that. But not up until now, not without trying. But yeah, it has just been one thing that I've been taking care of myself.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, the more exposure you get, the easier that will come to you. Yeah, we'll make sure. So when we post the podcast, we'll make sure that we tag Hoka as well, so that they so they can see that.
Thank you very much.
Good old Hoka. I was actually I was talking about Hoka to a running mate this week, and I found an old photo of a pair of Hokas, my first pair of Hokas, and it was actually 10 years ago today, like not today, but 10 years ago this year. Um, that I had my first pair of Hokas. I think it was 10 years ago. Yeah, 2015. Yeah, it's 2015. Um, and when they first
Which
came
one?
out, I can't. Did you know? I can't even remember which one, which model they were. I wish I ought to have a look actually and try
Fair
and
enough.
figure out what they are. But yeah, I remember at the time they were like it was still I'd been running in sort of like low profile running flats like Addy Zeros when they were still like low profile racing flats. And I'd had the you know the story of my running life is injuries after injuries, and I'd got an injury. And someone said, "Oh, why don't you try the new Hokas? They're like maximal cushion. It might take a bit of pressure off your knee, sort of thing." So I tried them, and yeah, and I've always been a fan of Hokas, like off and on. I've tried
Mm.
other brands here and there and stuff. But yeah, all roads seem to come back to Hoka somehow. They seem to know what they're doing, don't they? Yeah. So
Yeah,
I hope you do get sent a load of shoes.
that would
That'd
be
be great.
nice. That would be a breakthrough I've been looking for years. Yeah, yeah, because I was used to be quite a big guy, so I've always worn shoes with quite a lot of support. The Cliftons have got a reasonable stack, but the Brooks Glycerin Max they're serious. Like massive push. Actually made me about 6'1", I think, when I went in. But yeah, no, I've always worn Hoka. I think it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. I thought I was just so sick of wearing the same pair. I like variety in life. I'd love to wear loads of different running shoes. There's so many out there, and I like trying things, but I just don't want to risk anything. And they've worked for me so well. And I actually got a pair of Sauconys, and during the first run in them, got plantar fasciitis. Um, and that is why I've never looked back, and I've gone straight back to the Cliftons, and I will never go anywhere ever again. The Brooks have just sort of slipped in as a support shoe, but yeah.
Yeah, I did have I had a pair of Saucony Endorphin Pros, the carbon, yeah, the carbon shoes that they did. Yeah, and I wore them to destruction. I mean, they don't like the newer like carbon ones don't always last very long, do they? But
Yeah,
definitely got
they're,
some.
they're, they're sought after. There's
Mm,
no doubt in my mind that Saucony are a great running brand and create good shoes for the right feet. Just not mine.
just not yours. Amazing. Talk about, if you don't mind, talk about your mum and what actually, what actually happened and everything, and how, how she's doing now and everything.
Yeah, more than happy to talk about it. So yeah, 27th, 29th of January this year, I was back in Frinton actually, and I've lived in London for the last 10 or 12 years. And then I sold my flat, as I mentioned at the start, not that long ago. And I was working remotely for a period of time. And I just so happened to be spending a bit of time in Frinton in January. And I actually spent quite a lot of time here. I went away over Christmas and New Year, and I was almost like magnetized. Something was calling. It was strange. I'm not that philosophical, and I'm not into the energy and things happening necessarily. But there was something at the time I was sort of drawn to being in Frinton and spending time with my mum. My parents divorced last year, and it was a bit messy, not messy, but stressful for her. So I wanted to support her, and yeah. It was the 29th of January. I'd just been to the gym. I'd got up really early, about 6, and been to the gym. And I'd come back at 7, and she greeted me with the biggest hug. And we had our coffee, like we used to do all the time, and hopefully will again. And yeah, she collapsed and in my arms, literally, and I had no idea what was going on. She was out cold, fitting, and it was horrible. It was the
Mm,
worst day of my life, and the worst thing I've ever had to experience, and ever hopefully ever will. Called an ambulance. They arrived, rushed us to hospital, and like I said, we basically got there. They scanned her and told us quite quickly that they weren't. They didn't think that she was going to make it. What actually transpired, or what we then went on to discover, is that there are no neurosurgeons at Colchester General Hospital, which is where she was taken to. And I didn't realise that certain hospitals were specialists in certain
mm,
things. That's a new one for me. I thought they had someone that could cover everything
mm,
at all. Anyway, so the closest one was in Romford, which is another hour or so on, where they would have people that could operate on her. And what happened is they couldn't actually get through to Romford, and they couldn't get a bed confirmed or a doctor to see her. And they're busy in A&E, and she's an elderly lady. And there's young people coming in who they need to help. And because they couldn't get through to Romford, they basically had to say, we can't help her. We have to use our resources to help other people. Um,
mm,
they put her onto these sort of sedative drugs to make sure she wasn't going through any pain. Um, and yeah, left us in to sit in a room. And my sister was coming over from Australia, so she had like Wi-Fi on the flight and didn't have a clue if she was going to land and her mum would be alive or not. And we were sort of keeping her updated. Other family members came down. It was pretty horrendous. And then she started touching her head, and that sort of set us all off. And then a doctor came in and said, I'll just do a test, and was like, Penny, if you can hear me, just grab my hands. And she hadn't been responding to or anything like that, and we just all saw her grab and clench his hands. And it was like a miracle there, and then something was happening. Anyway, they rushed her off to Queen's Hospital, where the neurosurgeons are. They did an operation on her, the remarkable operation where you put something through her groin and up through her entire body, and then you clip the bleed where it had popped in the brain to stop it bleeding anymore. And that was successful. But what that does is cause a lot of upset in the brain, and it stops the blood flow to the brain, which means they need to hike her blood pressure to increase the blood flow to her brain. And that sort of caused heart issues. And she was dealing with all of that at the same time. And this roller coaster went on for a week or two, where they were trying to get enough blood to the brain to keep her alive. And it was kind of rejecting it because of this clip that had gone in. And then she sort of spent 4 or 5 months in that hospital recovering very, very slowly. And she was on very high dose medication. And what I learned during that phase is that brains are incredibly complex. If
Mm,
if someone has a bleed on the brain, it could mean anything. No one has a clue what that will then mean down the line, because your brain is so complicated. It might damage here, here, or here. So the hospital really, it was really difficult for them to say, well, this is what we can expect, or this is what you can expect. We had no idea from day to day how she was going to be, if she was going to get better. That's where Headway came in, the charity.
mm,
They have people, the doctors can't tell you. They can't commit to anything where they will say, I think this will happen. Whereas they're detached from it in the charity, and they can say, well,
mm,
this the most likely, and that was so helpful. But anyway, she slowly over the last 6 months come off really high dose medication, and as she's come off it, has just sort of come back round. So she can't walk at the moment, and probably won't walk again. But we're hopeful. We hold out hope. Anything could happen now. It's been such a miracle, her recovery. She struggles to feed herself, and her short-term memory isn't great. Like, she's quite muddled in her thoughts. But her long-term memory and her memory of people is really very much intact. So if I walk in and see her now, she's like, Sammy, and like gives me a massive hug. Um, and actually, her cognition and her understanding of where she is and what's going on and what's happened to her and what I'm doing with the challenge is the best it's ever been since it happened January right now. And actually, it's got to the point where I'll go in now and see her, and she'll be like, "How was your run today? How's it all going?" And she said, like, "I'm really proud of you." And that is all massive breakthroughs. About 3 4 months ago, and that's still 6 months after it happened, I would go and sit with her in hospital, and she'd just stare at me and like could not speak, or we couldn't have any dialogue. And we'd communicate like through music. I'd play songs that she loves, and she'd sort of move her head and dance. But yes, she's actually, now that she's off of a medication and in a care home and out of the hospital environment, doing really well. And
mm,
we're really hopeful now that there is, chance that she could walk again, potentially come home. She does need too much care to. She doesn't qualify to go home, basically. She needs too much care, so she needs to be in a care home for now. But the trajectory that she's on, in terms of how she's improving, is really good. So yeah, who knows where we could get to with all of that, and where she might be, just a few months' time.
Because that's rapid, isn't it? That actually, people say like, oh, it's been like nearly a year, but as far as like brain injuries go, that's actually quick progress, isn't it? Yeah, like coming back, yeah, within like so many months, and you
Yeah,
see those steps.
they say 5 years. They say almost 2 to 5 years is the
Mm,
sort of time frame, mostly within the first two, but up to 5 years to fully recover from a brain
yeah.
injury. You're absolutely spot on. So yeah, hers was no progress really for 6 months, maybe even 8 months, and then lots of progress in the
Mm,
last three. And actually, when she left hospital, she was due to come to Frinton to a care home, and there wasn't any availability around here. So she went to one about an hour away. And when I was about to start my challenge down here, she was still at the one an hour away. And I'd moved home to be close to her for the challenge. And it would have been inconvenient. I would obviously have still done it, but to have done 2 hours of driving as well. And literally the day that my challenge started, she moved to Frinton.
wow.
It was, it was all sort of
Mm.
the perfect storm.
Everything falling into place. Yeah.
It all fell into place massively, yeah. And now she's been out a few times. We went to the pub last weekend, had a pub lunch, and she sat and ate her food and had a glass of wine, which is just things that we didn't ever think we'd ever see again.
Mm.
And now I'm really hopeful that she'll be able to come down for the end of the challenge, the last day, and be there, because it's about her. And I don't know, maybe even earlier, if we can get her down to the seafront just to watch me finish or something.
Mm.
That is what we're moving towards, and yeah, that's just amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned I wanted to talk about Headway because I'm familiar with Headway anyway because my younger sister, she suffered a brain injury when she was about 21 in a road accident. And unfortunately she never recovered. She died like 2 years later.
Mhm.
Um, but for me. I that was one of the reasons why I did a bit of charity work for Headway as well and raised some money for him because like you say, they kind of they fill in the gaps, don't they? So, you know, absolutely, you can never get a straight answer out of a doctor, out of a surgeon. We sat in all these meetings and we were like, so what does that mean? And they're like, we don't know what's going to happen. And they're like, we don't know. And then Headway come in and they say, right, this we've dealt with this situation before, and this is what happened with this person. This is an example of somebody who went through this and they recovered from this. And it's kind of reassuring, isn't it? So like my respect for that charity just like went through the roof. So I'm sure you're the same, aren't you? So how do they how do they feel about this the challenge and everything? How involved are they getting with it?
Yeah, I mean, you've absolutely nailed it. They literally fill in those gaps, and which is a massive gap. And they're an amazing charity. And yeah, they've been incredible with me. They're one of the main brain injury charities. There is the brain injury charity as well in the UK, but I don't think they get anywhere near the amount of support or funding or people doing challenges or whatever they're doing to fundraise for them, because I feel like I've been treated like a king. Like ever since I told them what I was planning on doing, that I was doing it for them, they have just been so incredibly supportive. We've got like a WhatsApp group going now, and they're sending in support in there all the time. And each time I'm getting towards a new milestone, like in terms of like how much I've raised, they're really helpful at like translating that into okay, these are the services that will then provide. And there's an ongoing dialogue. And when I was having a really bad few days, halfway through the challenge, like I mentioned, I was ill. They took videos in the offices, sort of wishing me well, and you just get all these personal touches.
Mm,
But I tell how much it means to them. You can just tell you're dealing with a charity that is full of good people doing good things,
mm,
and that is like I'd only dealt with them a little bit with Mum. I hadn't had full exposure to them and their teams. But now I'm so pleased that I'm fundraising for them, and yeah, if I can do more for them in the future, I think I'm definitely going to.
yeah, amazing. What are you up to now as far as like the fundraising and everything? I hadn't checked.
Well, so yesterday morning I was on £16,000 and then about 18 and a half with gift aid. Yesterday afternoon, I actually put out a video on Instagram, sort of a call for help, because although that's a lot of money and people have been supporting me massively, I'm a bit worried that I'm getting close to 74 and that there's still £50,000 or so to raise on top of more to raise still. And I was getting a bit worried that I don't have a huge following on Instagram, so my reach is almost limited for the time being. Like the more the
Mm,
challenge is on, it's growing. But I'm very aware that it's limited and that there's not long to go. And I didn't want to have any regrets going into or finishing the challenge that I didn't do certain things at certain times to
mm,
boost. And so I've been mulling over a £5,000 quote from a PR company that will get me into mainstream media and help tell the story. And I don't have 5 grand, but I was starting to think, right, could I ask local businesses to maybe sponsor me, and I'll put their logos on my kit, and family and friends maybe
mm,
contribute. And anyway, I was having a conversation about all of this and whether I didn't want to do that. It was never in my plan, but I just sort of having a bit of a panic yesterday. And anyway, I spoke to my friend Hannah from GiveStar actually and just said, look, I'm thinking about doing this. And she said, just go out on Instagram and tell people the story that you just told me, that
mm,
you've really grateful for all the fundraising, but you're worried you won't hit your goal. And please, can you help me reach mainstream media? Tag people the 6 degrees
mm.
separation. And I've never been involved in a viral video before, but my last 24 hours have been absolutely chaos because my phone has been going off with people sharing the story. So where I've got to with it, what I'm doing, what I need. And yeah, I've got ITV News coming down tomorrow. I've got
Amazing.
yeah, Radio 1 messaged me today saying, please come on my show. Um,
Wow.
I had a few other people, high profile people, donating and sharing today. And yeah, the fundraising has gone up £6,000 since yesterday morning, which for a small scale challenge like
Mm.
literally running everything at 25,000. So a massive shift overnight, and hopefully keep a bit of that.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And obviously you'll have the exposure of being on the Home Trials podcast as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll make sure we get it shared, and yeah, and I'll share. Yeah, I'll have a look. Which video was it? Just send it to me, and I'll get it shared as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Not that you need help.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not possible without anyone sharing beauty in this thing. Absolutely everyone that has shared it, like I'm so grateful. And yeah, you just don't know who's going to pick these things up. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
thank
true. Amazing. So for people that want to get involved then, so are you open to just anyone coming and running with you, random people coming to run
you.
with you? Yeah.
Yeah, and that has been one of my favorite things. Just people like messaging saying, "Where will you be tomorrow?" I'm starting, and I tell them where, and then they just turn up. So yeah, open invite, very much so.
Amazing. That's awesome. And what about like links and everything's in your Instagram profile and stuff? So links for people to donate and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all in
Yeah.
there. So Sam King is my name, and Fatboy Sking is
That's
my
yeah, I
hand.
was just gonna say, yeah, but it's your handle. Yeah.
Yeah.
That boy
So
scheme.
obviously, yeah, used to be slightly bigger than I am now, and name big fan of Fatboy Slim. That sort of was another place as an idea before the challenge. But yeah, I'm running everything through Instagram basically. I posted a couple of things on TikTok, but it's hard work doing all of it. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a
Instagram.
lot to think about. Right. Well, we'll make sure we get all of that shared on all the platforms and see if we can make sure you get your full total by the end of it. So appreciate you coming on, mate, and chatting. It's a great challenge for a great charity, and wish you all the best with it, mate.
Thank you very much. So this is my first ever podcast interview actually.
Is it?
So I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem. I'm sure it'll be the first of many, and get used to the like media attention and having to do interviews and stuff.
All part of the fun.
Amazing. Thanks for your time, mate, and
That's
thanks
great.
for coming on, and thanks for listening, everyone. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye bye
Thanks.
bye bye.